Yes. I mean, that's what it used to be. It always wasn't Colorado Center until the Yahoo moved in there. I guess they paid a lot of money to cheap Kane. And I drove by, yes. I want to change it back. Oh, it is. Okay, I don't know for sure they did, because I saw that sign. There was a sign on 26th and Broadway that says Colorado. I know it said that. They physically took that down. It's like, no, there was a Yahoo on that side, so they took it down. Chances are they're probably going to change the other side too. You probably want to look into that. It makes more sense.
Oh, you're
What's the other choice?
Hey, you guys want to say something?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin tonight's program. Please find your seats.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the March edition of District 1 Speakers Bureau. Thank you for joining us at tonight's event. Whenever I'm opening an event, there's always that driving question. When does the 7 o'clock meeting start? And now it is start time. We'll take care of the phantoms on the audio section here in just a moment. Thank you for being with us tonight. We have a great program, a little bit different order. Let me take care of that for you right now. Gotta love technology. We have a fantastic MC for you tonight. One of our most recently qualified speakers. Please help me welcome the ever intrepid, the really needs no introduction himself, Furman Megan!
Good evening, fellow speakers and honored guests. Now that we're putting March behind us and all of that March madness, we can focus on April and spring forth with new information, high content information that will be supplied by our excellent speakers today. Our first speaker is Kane Phelps. Kane is a licensed psychologist and grief counselor, psychotherapist. He previously worked on the front lines of the child abuse system, mostly as a supervising social worker for over 26 years. He specializes in grief counseling for men and co-facilitates a bereavement group at our house, a grief support center in West Los Angeles and Woodland Hills. He also is a hospice volunteer with the VA. He was recently awarded a certificate in thanatology and grief counseling from the American Association of Death Education and Counseling. Kane is also a longtime Toastmaster, a competent leader, and Coach Class Club president. He previously won the District 1 Humor Speech Contest. His speech is titled, The Wisdom in Grieving. The Wisdom in Grieving. Kane Phelps.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, my mom died suddenly and prematurely just before I was about to graduate from college. She'd been the one that instilled in me a faith that I could do anything. I managed to graduate, but then I ran. I ran not only for my grieving, but I also ran for my family's long-standing tradition of New England farming and conservative public service. My excuse? I was going to find my own life path, starting with a 14,000-mile motorcycle trip from Europe to Calcutta, interning in the motion picture business and becoming a producer, acting with my buddy Jack Nicholson, building my dream home in the wilderness of Big Sur, writing songs and playing the guitar, and then, kaboom, falling in love and marrying beautiful Dee Dee. Dee Dee could have been a rock star in the 1960s as Dick and Dee. I'll never forget first meeting her and sitting beside her on her couch in Tarzana, and I was just shaking like a leaf. And I heard the echo of my mother's voice saying, "Go for it, Kane, you can do it." And so I went for it, and we've been together for almost 40 years. Now, with Dee Dee by my side, I am oozing confidence. I have found my purpose. I convinced Dee Dee that I'm going to be the next rock singing sensation, and that we need to put our entire life savings into producing a record album together that we call Love from Big Sur. Now, it's an album of country-tinged ballads that we release at the height of the disco craze. How do you think that turned out? I've still got 5,000 albums in my garage. Identity, shot. Money, shot. And you know the funny part? There was no funny part. I couldn't sleep. I kept over and over in my mind saying, "You're a failure, you're a failure." That faith that my mom had in me that I could do anything was shattered. I was grieving. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, how do you deal with grief and loss? Grief is our common bond. It brings us together. It dissolves the illusion of our separateness. If we embrace it, if we engage with it, it dissolves. If we embrace with it, if we engage with it, it deepens us, it brings us wisdom and compassion. If we turn away from it, if we try to avoid it, it can cause substance abuse and/or depression. Now, we live in a culture that values youth over elderhood, competition over cooperation, and oftentimes wealth is associated with happiness. It's hurry, hurry, hurry. There is no time. There's no time when it comes to life's deepening events like death and grief. We turn away. This evening, I want to talk to you because we are grief illiterate as a culture. I want to talk to you about grief literacy. And I'm going to share some practices with you to help grow this often neglected aspect of our lives. Grief specialist and author Dr. Thomas Attig talks about the development of sorrow-friendly practices. Now, before I share some of these practices with you, one caveat. There's no right way to grieve, okay? Each individual grieves in their own particular unique manner. But Dr. Attig has identified several, and I'm going to cover four sorrow-friendly practices this evening. The first one is the practice of compassion. Now, the word compassion comes from the Greek compassion. Com meaning with, passion meaning sorrow. To be with sorrow. Now, it's said that sorrow is the kindling that ignites compassion. In order to be with and connect with someone else's sorrow, you first have to connect with your own. The very end of my motorcycle trip, Calcutta, India, I'll never forget the very last day. I woke up at 6 in the morning. This is November 1963. Sweltering heat, a dripping perspiration as I put on my drip dry suit, my penny loafers, grab my duffel bag, and go down to the lobby. Indians start bowing to me, like I'm a guru or something. And then the desk clerk points to a newspaper rack across the lobby. And I go to it. The headline screams, President Kennedy assassinated in Texas. Despite the intense Indian heat, I start to shiver uncontrollably. In the cab ride on the way to the airport, the cabbie says, "Oh, you're President Kennedy. Such a great, great man. Here in India. Oh, we love him so very, very much." Tears start to sting my eyes. We get to the airport. He refuses to take payment. He refuses to let me carry my bag. We go in the terminal. In more bowing. We get to the ticket counter. There's a whole long line. People step aside. Now, if you know India, this does not happen. These simple acts of kindness conferred upon me, and nobody. I mean, I was a homesick 21-year-old kid, as far away from home as I could possibly be. Those simple acts of kindness conferred upon me compassion. I ask you to take a moment to review your lives and see if you can come up with an experience that you've had, either conferring special acts of kindness or being the recipient of special acts of kindness. So when you do that, you realize that in either of those instances, compassion can lift you up no matter how heavy that burden is. Grief is our common ground. It brings us together. It dissolves the illusion of our separateness. Sorrow-friendly practice number 2. Embrace yourself. When faced with a sad event, image, story, lots of times we turn away. No, embrace, engage, allow yourself to experience the fullness of your feelings. It's said that our healing occurs when we turn towards ourselves. It's kind of like driving a car on an icy road. Any of you from back east, you know that when you get on an icy road and you start to slide, if you turn into the slide, you can get control of the car. So you know that's easier said than done. Because oftentimes when we're in the midst of intense grieving, the feelings seem so completely overwhelming. But Dr. Attig and others remind us that feelings in and of themselves are transitory. They come and then they go. And you can sort of imagine, it's like a technique, is to imagine that you are like the sky and your emotions are like the clouds passing through you. Another challenge is that many of us American men are emotionally underdeveloped. You know, taught as we are from the time we were little kids, right, to stuff our emotions. I mean, that's, and the common wisdom is that the real American man is a testosterone-driven warrior. No. When my mom died so suddenly and prematurely, my dad, who had always been a very typical American dad, emotionally disconnected, but he was also a recluse, a social recluse. But when she died so suddenly and prematurely, he cried. We had never seen him cry. He became mom and dad. He even started a support group on his own. My dad's used his sorrow transformed him. He was a different kind of American warrior. He was a warrior, a step up to the plate, love warrior. The American poet John Vance Cheney wrote, "The soul would have no rainbow, had the eyes no tears." Sorrow-friendly practice number 3, pamper yourself. Get support. Now this should be fairly obvious, because when you're going through the grieving process, you're in a highly vulnerable state, susceptible to illness and all manner of stress-related issues. So pampering yourself, whatever that means to you, and you, and you, to each of you here in this room, I mean, whether it's going to the spa, or taking extra sessions at the gym, going for long walks, extra rest, something called tear soup, comfort foods, support. Now, because our culture is so mobile, and because our families are so fragmented, support groups can be enormously helpful. So I am privileged and honored to work as a co-facilitator at the West LA Bereavement Center at our house. And I can tell you this, the work there is so deep and so real and so inspiring that many of the participants go on to become lifelong friends. There's a story of the Buddha and the mustard seed. There was a grieving mom carrying her dead 8-year-old child through a village, pleading, help me, bring this child, my baby, back to life." One of the villagers suggested that she visit the Buddha, who happened to be visiting nearby. So she went to him and said, "Please, sir, can you help me with my child?" And the Buddha said, "Yes, I can help you, but you must perform a task. And that task, you must bring me a mustard seed. But the mustard seed must come from a home that has not met grief." But you may know where this is going. She went through the village, house after house after house, for days, until she finally realized the futility of her task. Did her grief end? No. But the container for her grief became larger. And as a result, she was able to properly bury her child and move on with her life. Grief is our common ground. It brings us together. It dissolves the illusion of our separateness. Sorrow-friendly practice number 4. Give grief and loss a place of honor in the banquet of your life. Be creative. You know, in our society, in our culture, we get 3 days bereavement leave, whether we're in corporate America or in civic life. 3 days. The idea is get closure, get over it, get back to work. Okay? Dr. Attig and others say closure is for real estate deals and bank accounts, not for love accounts. And we know now about grieving that it's important to maintain bonds with those that you have lost, that you have valued and lost. Now, some of the common practices that are happening today, creative practices, things like memorial websites, memorial blogs, scrapbooks, home altars, anniversary date ritual memorials. There's a myriad of different creative things, tools that are being used. Many people who have experienced tragic loss go on to incorporate those losses into compassionate activism. Think of the Matthew Shepard case in Colorado, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the recent Sandy Hook with the parents that have united around gun legislation. Then think about the arts. How much great art comes from a legacy of grief? Think of Picasso's Guernica. Think about Hamlet. What about the Vietnam Memorial? Anybody been there? Deep, deep, beautiful. And then music, the blues. The whole blues genre comes out of grieving. Grief brings us together, dissolves the illusion of our separateness. When I was at the very low point in my life, and that album had failed, and all I could think of was that I was a failure, I called my older brother in desperation. He's a Christian minister in Florida. I said, Dick, I got no job, I got no money, I got no job skills. What the heck am I going to do? Kane, relax a second. Think about it. Ever since you were a little kid, you had great people skills. Dick, there's no job called people skills. Kane, wait a minute. Think about our mom and dad, the legacy they left. They devoted their lives to helping other people, right? Now, with your communication skills and your life experience, why don't you think of doing something in the people helping profession? You'd be great. Ta-da! Sold the Big Sur home, moved to Los Angeles, went to graduate school, got my master's degree, got my therapist's license. First job up was Child Protective Services. 26 years. And then for the past 2 years, I've been transitioning into bereavement and hospice. It is so great. I get to use the grief and sorrows of my life to connect with other people's suffering and to help them heal. And you know what? It makes me filled with joy. I get to give my parents a place of honor in the banquet of my life every single day. And to my mom, Connie, and my dad, Walter Phelps, I am proud to say, I've come home. We've talked this evening about the wisdom in grieving. And I want to review 4 sorrow-friendly practices that we have talked about so far. Sorrow-friendly practice number 1, practice compassion. Sorrow-friendly practice number 2, embrace your sorrow. Sorrow-friendly practice number 3, pamper yourself and get support. And sorrow-friendly practice number 4, give grief and loss a place of honor in your life and be creative. My fellow Toastmasters and most honored guests, I ask you, as you leave this room, or before you leave this room tonight, consider choosing just one of these practices, and put it in play within the next 48 hours. Because if you do that, not only are you going to benefit, but those around you and the greater community are going to benefit as well. I want to close with a little practice that I use to help deal with my grief. It goes back to what I suggested earlier. I call it the sorrow to joy blues.